Screw it.
We gotta blow shit up because we are getting screwed here. Screw the government.
So maybe he's right.
Welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Marc Clair.
All right, folks, we are back once again. I have gathered my wonderful group of libertarians here tonight. Libertarian-leaning folks, liberty lovers, whatever you want to call us, because we have done, frankly, I think, a wonderful service for humanity. We actually sat through a Democratic debate on a Saturday night. Some of us later than others, the East Coasters over here. But we're going to start off with us right here on the West Coast, of course. Sitting sitting on my left, Mr. Brian McWilliams.
And you're the soberest one here introducing me that way.
That's
Hello,
true.
I am Brian McWilliams. That debate was interesting, to say the least. A lot of things that made me angry, but we'll get into that.
And what are you drinking, Mr. McWilliams? This is, of course, a Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor style show we're doing here. So
That's
we're all
right.
having a little adult bev.
I may be a little drunker than usual. I think I actually followed our drinking rules to the debate a little bit closer than usual.
That's really dangerous.
Yes, so if there's any slurring, blame that on our sound engineer. That's not me. I am drinking
It's an effect.
Strongbow hard apple cider. This is the honey Strongbow. I would say I prefer the usual Strongbow.
I would concur, but
beggars can't be choosers.
I'm drinking the same thing because that's what we're doing.
This is just what Mark had. This is what Mark had.
Yeah, that's what we had. And now we're gonna shoot things over to, where should I go next? It's so hard to choose. Why don't we go to Philly, where our friend JB is here, and we haven't talked to you in quite a while, JB. So welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be back.
And I think it's appropriate to have you on as I don't know, I would call you a reformed Democrat, reformed progressive. I don't even like to use that term, but you know,
Sounds pretty pejorative, but
you come from that side of the aisle, let's say. You know, we all come from somewhere. A lot of us were raised, I was raised in like a small government Republican household, as I think Odie and I think Brian was too.
He's going to deny your accusations like Ben Carson.
Yeah.
No, I grew up in a progressive liberal household.
Why is JB got to be Ben Carson just because they're both black? Now we got to make race a thing already?
Our listeners don't know that he's black.
Well, they do now.
This is a podcast, by the way, not a video cast. They don't know he's black or white.
Well,
he could be.
Now all our cards are on the table, folks.
You're tearing down the curtain, Brian.
He could be Japanese.
We're ripping this thing down. Hey, who is that? Who is that other guy talking? Talking about ironically, you tear down the curtain and through a comment that further tears the curtain down. So that was, of course, before. We'll get to you in a moment. JB, what are you drinking over there?
I'm just having a little tequila and juice here. Some Camarena. It's pretty good. Reposado.
Damn.
Enjoy it.
What kind of juice do you drink tequila with?
This is like V8 Splash. And
that sounds like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's actually pretty good.
Did you invent that drink, or is that a thing that's like people do?
I don't think so. I just do it.
Oh my God! Well, there you go.
Well, you should name it.
There you go. You should name it, and you should name it after the show, and we can try to get a sponsor off of it.
Do not associate us with that drink. It sounds terrible.
Give it a try. There's some ginger ale in there too. That really brings it together.
You're drinking V8 ginger ale and tequila?
JB is not going to be the bartender when we all gather at Rico's house for the
my God
Republican convention in Cleveland.
That's literally the worst. The worst drink I've ever heard. Disgusting.
You really have to give it a try.
All right, let's pull back the curtain all the way and welcome in that other random voice that popped in, John Odermatt over in Pittsburgh, who is, I have just been told, has put the baby to sleep, thankfully. So
yeah, the baby's asleep. I didn't originally plan on joining you guys.
This was a last minute surprise. You must have gotten
I kind of moved some things around and was able to come in and drink with you guys and talk about the debate. Looking forward to it.
You told us you had a party to go to, so what happened? Was the party kind of lame? Did you give up? Did you get so fired up about the Democrat debate you just had to hop in here with us?
Well, I mean, I guess you'll learn, as you all maybe eventually someday become parents, is parties when you have kids go from like 5 until 8. I'm on the East Coast, so the party was over, and I came home, and the debate just came on. Started watching. I'm like, oh, why not watch the debate and join in with you guys?
So this is a party run by people with children, is what you're saying?
Okay, there were like 900 kids there. Probably.
I don't think that should be allowed to be called a party. That's just my view. It should be called a gathering.
There was alcohol there for the adults. So
not enough. That's not enough.
That's
Anything
good.
that ends by 8 cannot be called a party. That's just a rule.
You ever hear this thing?
Unless it started at the 8 a.m., like 8 a.m., that would be okay.
Well, you ever hear this thing like a professor was asked like how many? It was like a physics professor or something. He's like, how many second graders could you take in a fight? And what's your guess? Let's just say I said real quick because there were 900 children at this party. If things got out of hand, I want to know.
I've actually, I think we did this. JB would probably remember this. We talked about this in college a lot. Like, if you were attacked,
a lot.
No,
Yeah,
maybe not a lot. Like several
not,
times.
No,
Like,
he's not exaggerating. This was several times. We talked like,
if you were attacked by like 100 midgets, like how many midgets could you take on? Do you think?
Right, realistically. Before they swarm.
I don't know. Maybe
Are
10?
these midgets trained in
not
any
that
sort of
many.
martial arts, or are they?
Well, are we talking about midgets or children?
That's either or.
No, I don't think.
No,
you gotta
midgets are
separate
much
that.
stronger.
It's a very valid question.
a midget
Mark's
could
bringing up.
be-
The training is very important. The
Exactly.
training, level of training.
A midget could have spent his whole life training, and maybe kick my ass.
Right, they're
if it's
strong.
the midget Ronda Rousey would kill me, even if it was a midget.
I mean,
Absolutely.
A child isn't developed, it's weak, it doesn't know what it's doing. Let's say children, because you said children. Let's go around. JB, how many children?
God, I don't know, 15 maybe.
15.
Wait, are they
How
all
old are they?
trained to kill though?
Well,
No, they're just
that
children.
depends.
Okay, these are children trained by ISIS.
These are children at the party you were at.
Well, that depends on
Which
what
is
I'm
probably
trying
an
to
ISIS
do,
party.
I guess. If I'm trying to restrain them or if I'm trying to put them down.
How about we all
that
simmer
would-
on this topic?
I think they would have to be trained to kill. Otherwise, it's not even really a question because they're just kids. You would just make a joke and run away or something.
You were actually breaking this down far more than any moderator broke down any question in the debate
That's
tonight.
true. All right, why don't we stew on this question in our minds over the next hour? Maybe we can return to it. Hopefully, you guys are forgetting about it. Maybe we'll
Oh,
return to
I'm
it.
not forgetting about it.
But we're going to move on to the debate. I think that's a good idea. What do you guys think?
By the way, I'm drinking some
Hey,
beef
I'm doing this new thing. Why don't you guys play along with me? You guys ready to roar?
Yeah!
So, where do we start? I'm kind of sick of starting the conversation, so why don't one of you guys just take the reins? JB, it's been the longest since we spoke to you. You sort of come from that Democrat side of things, I guess, in a way. So why don't you just give me your initial impressions of the debate of these three candidates? What are your thoughts? Worst question ever. If I was a journalist, I'd be fired just now. What are your thoughts? No one asked that. But this is not journalism, so we're good.
I think my main takeaway from it, I have to be honest, and though it shouldn't really surprise me, Hillary Clinton has this uncanny knack of being able to say absolutely nothing in like a minute-long like blurb of a speech. She'll go and try to answer a question and say all these things and never really say anything at all. And that's what I really got out. That was my main take-home from watching that debate, which was my first Democratic debate. I didn't watch the other one. So
She's an extremely skilled politician. There's no doubt about
she's
it.
really good at saying, like, making it seem like she's saying something, but she's really saying nothing
She
at
sounds
all.
extremely intelligent. It sounds like she absolutely knows what she's talking about. But if you actually broke down the sentences afterwards, you're like, wait a minute, you didn't
Right,
remotely answer that
it's just
question.
throwing out buzzwords, and it's like, I'm hitting on what do Democrats care about? This, and this. Although she didn't talk about medical marijuana, which annoyed me. They didn't touch that at all
because
tonight.
she's not really for it.
No, she's not for it. She flip-flopped on it. But also, I blame the moderators for that, though, JB, because all these questions, and we were live blogging, and I mentioned this. The moderators, they start out with a question. It was like they'd hit her on an issue that was relevant to her, and then they would mention it at the beginning, and they'd be like, so you said this about this, but then also blah, 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 blah. And they'd go off, they'd start with something real, and then they'd go off into something bullshitty that she could then, just like you said, talk about nothing on and not answer the actual, point that people want to hear about.
Yeah, it's actually quite incredible. I was pretty impressed with it towards the end, to be honest with you.
That's why it's why she's Hillary Clinton, man. It's why people don't falter. Yeah, go ahead, Odie.
She has some wizard tendencies, as we talked about with Donald Trump after the last GOP debate. She has a way to. It's different than Trump. Trump is boisterous and in your face and just saying very simple things over and over again. Hillary kind of says simple things, but she says them. She dances around. Says one thing over here, one thing over there. You're like, is she for it? Is she against it? I'm not sure. Maybe she's both. I don't know. I like her. She's smiling. She's happy. I don't know. It's weird. But she's able to just fool people. I've never seen anything like it before, other than Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the same way.
I mean, I'll tell you, if I was new to politics or if I was just a casual viewer and I didn't know about Hillary Clinton and what she really has voted for and stood for and supported, I might come away thinking she was fantastic, And that's unfortunately probably how most of the electorate, maybe at least a good portion of them, comes into this. So, eek.
Right. Well, it's like her she's a war hawk. Her tendencies are towards war. She's been pretty, in the past, pretty vocal about being like pro-military, pro aggressive actions. And yet in this debate, you would have no idea.
Wasn't pretty much everyone on stage kind of similar in their... I mean, they started off with about a half hour talking about foreign policy, which they were almost had to do after the Paris thing. And, I'm sure they probably rearranged some of the debate based on that. But the first half hour was just basically, how would you fight ISIS? And they had some small differences, but they were all basically saying, yeah, we need to be out there doing all this military stuff in a very, mostly vague way. I mean, I don't think I heard any very solid policy prescriptions here, unless I missed them. Did you guys
nobody wanted to say boots on the ground or anything like that,
Well, they did say it, and O'Malley called them out on it, which I thought was pretty interesting.
It was good. Brian takes another point off in his go Malley.
Go Malley! Look,
oh my God. When we cancel the Rand Pluses and Minus podcast, we're going to have go Malley or no Malley.
Go Malley. I love it. Go Malley, no Malley. Look, I said after the first Democratic debate that I thought O'Malley had some good points. I thought tonight he had some good points. Like, he will, granted, take it with a grain of salt. They all have their points they all agree on, which we all hate. But he would call people out on certain things. Like, he had some good points tonight. Give the guy credit.
I think he did pretty well tonight.
Yeah.
I definitely think so.
I mean, aside from being a robot, I think he did do pretty well. And I think he did later on in the debate score some points against Hillary Clinton, especially talking about when they were talking about Wall Street and breaking up banks and the corporate donors that back her. But he definitely is at least partially, maybe 5-10% robot, I think.
What about that? He's more than that. He's definitely a robot set for the future.
Would you vote for a robot over Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton? At least a robot would analyze things realistically, break them down, look at the actual numbers behind them. I say go robot. Robot 2016. I'm all in.
Would you ever vote for a robot? I mean, what if a robot ran for president? That might happen in the future.
Hashtag Randbot.
Randbot. Oh boy. When we get to the point where robots are running, I mean, hey, it's not that crazy. What if they decide some robots have consciousness and have human rights, then, maybe they need to participate in the political system.
Well, if they keep up the fucking minimum wage, it's going to be an explicit podcast, by the way. If we keep up the minimum wage as it is, the robots will be most of the working class, so they'll have the majority vote. So, robot candidate. Let's go. Do it.
All right, maybe that's what O'Malley's planting the seeds for.
The Matrix is happening.
Just getting us used to robotic-like tendencies in the political arena. We'll see.
And they can rig the voting machines.
I'm curious what you guys think of this statement made by Bernie Sanders. Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism. What do you guys think about that?
I'll let the other people answer first.
I think I know what he's talking about.
I don't. So can you explain?
How?
I can. I'm not saying that. I think he emphasize the role of climate change to terrorism, but there is some play there, because with changing climate there comes changing resources, and some areas get drier, some areas get wetter, farming becomes more difficult. It can have a tendency to create more strife.
I can see how any climate...
And they have done some studies about that have shown that the shifting of resources based on the climate have contributed to some violence.
But wait, isn't that the climate hasn't changed that much yet? It hasn't changed to a point where everything's actually altering as far as crop growth or anything. The only thing that's changed is economics and how we're applying regulations based on climate change. So isn't that based upon regulation and the application of law rather than climate change that's screwing these people in that case?
I'm not certain.
Boom!
Well, look.
Also, the globe or the world as a whole is becoming less violent. I mean, that's a fact. So
I would actually contend with that.
Climate change is making the world less violent. There you go.
Let's contend it, Mark, because I agree with Odie.
Contend it. That's the whole Pinker mythology where he says just because we're compliant little slaves that sort of just we have strong governments, so there's less violence, but they don't include the calculation of all the hidden violence in that system, and that's I don't think a valid. But that's going down a whole different rabbit hole.
We're excluding government coercion and that stuff. Just outright violent acts, violent attacks, murder, rape, stabbing, killing, shooting. That is down. I mean, that's down over the globe. It's a fact.
And he didn't just say violence, because there's conflicts over resources in all of humanity, always, no matter what the climate does. But he directly related it to terrorism, and I think the terrorism, I guess you could tie it into oil, and maybe that's why we're involved in these countries, and that somehow is tied into the climate, but it seems like a statement that is a bit of a stretch.
Wouldn't you think that if, in fact, they put into climate change, the people that are most affected by climate change regulation and like all these things are put into place are third world countries. It's not the first world countries. It's the third world countries that are getting screwed over because they're like, you can't do coal anymore. And they're like, that's all we got. We don't really, we are a third world country. We don't have the cubes that you put in your cars yet that make hydrogen. So like those are the people that are probably going to be more enticed to be like, fuck the system.
Screw it.
We got to blow shit up because we are getting screwed here. Screw the government. Like,
so maybe he's right.
He
I think you disagree with Bernie Sanders. Unbeknownst to yourself.
Damn you!
Oh, you've just twisted yourself.
Son of a bitch. Damn it, you got me. I'll
admit it.
I'll admit it, you got me.
Never happened before, ever.
You just Sanders to me.
Let alone on this podcast. All right. Brian and Bernie Sanders.
You've just been Sanders. Sanders?
Sanders.
No, you've been burned. Duh.
One thing you have to agree with Bernie on, he did give some mention to the effects of blowback and how we should conduct our foreign policy when they were talking about it that first 30 minutes. And I thought that was pretty good.
He didn't really use the term. He kind of vaguely implied
use the term,
that,
but he basically described it.
Yeah, I'll say expound on that a little bit, just in case people didn't see the debate. If you are able, I know we've all been drinking.
Yeah, it's tough for me to say exactly, but he especially when he was really harping on going into Iraq, he was like, intervening in such a heavy-handed way directly leads to ISIS, essentially. He basically said that going into Iraq was a primary cause of why we have ISIS right now.
Right.
And he was emphasizing that and how we should shape our foreign policy in the future and be mindful of doing things like that and their repercussions.
Right.
That's kind of the type of thing you might hear Rand Paul say in a debate. I even saw Rick Santorum saying something recently about how, our intervention has helped create ISIS, which is just so crazy to come from a neocon type guy like Santorum, but it just shows you how this idea is getting out there in the popular debate because it's becoming a truth that cannot be denied, and so some politicians are just shrugging their shoulders and saying, all right, well, I can't really deny this anymore, so even though I never wanted to say this stuff, I'm gonna have to. I mean, the fact that Rick Santorum is making Ron Paulian-esque statements about this stuff really tells you how far at least the political debate has come.
Well, I think it's becoming the writing's on the wall. I mean, our nation is broke. We can't afford to wage another war in the Middle East. We can't afford. I hate saying we. I shouldn't be saying we. The United States government can't afford another Iraq. We can't do the same thing in Iran or in Syria. And Bernie Sanders, I think more so than the other two candidates tonight, talked about that and talked about other ways to kind of look at a solution for that for the Middle East, talking about all of the other Middle Eastern countries around there that have armies. They need to step up. I mean, they need to step up. Not necessarily the United States doesn't need to arm them, but it's time for those countries to step up and actually do something. You can't keep looking for the U.S. to come in with their drones and their bombs to take out these terrorists. I mean, things need to change.
The Middle East stuff, I don't know if you guys have seen the Ben Swan piece on Syria, but it's just so complicated because so many different countries have been funding so many different sides of this, and now they're all kind of there. You have some U.S. Special Forces, you have Russia bombing, you have talk about, no-fly zones in Iraq and Syria, and the U.S. has basically been funding all sides of this. Saudi Arabia has been funding various terrorist groups, some of which break off and turn into ISIS, some of which break off and turn into al-Nusra, and it's just so complex. And the idea that there's any simple solution is ridiculous. And so, now I'm getting out of the Democrat debate, but I heard Trump the other day just going, I would destroy ISIS. I'd bomb them all. I would just destroy them. It's like, what do you even... That means nothing. That literally means nothing.
A bomb the pipelines. A bomb the facilities.
That's great.
Exactly.
Bomb the refineries.
You cannot bomb a ideology that's grown out of a foreign policy that you created. Like, the more you try to bomb that ideology, the more it's going to crop up. And that's what people don't seem to understand, except perhaps Ron Paul and I guess Bernie Sanders, as evidence tonight. But it's frustrating to see that nobody can understand that. And the thing is, I thought there would be actually a lot more conversation about that, considering the Paris attacks just happened. And, it's interesting because people are like, oh, well, they hate America because we're free. And we're like, no, we don't. They hate us because we're involved there. But Paris not Paris, but France in general has actually stepped up their efforts to fight ISIS as well. I mean, is this not a direct response to their added emphasis on fighting terrorism and ISIS and their presence in that country? It seems to me like it's a direct response. I'm not condoning it, obviously, but it just seems like, cause and effect.
But really, what are you supposed to do in this instance? as far as I know, even in a truly libertarian society, there would be some times where you're morally justified to go into an area that's not part of your sovereign territory to protect human rights. Mm-hmm. And you can unequivocally say that ISIS is a major violator of human rights. So you're pretty much damned if you do or damned if you don't.
Well, I in no way disagree that human beings have the right to stop human rights abuses, and including the type being committed by ISIS. The problem is that's not what our military ends up doing. They're really just taking, they're committing human rights abuses. They're not in spreading liberty. They're spreading democracy, and democracy in a lot of these countries means more tyranny. So at the end of the day, they're not standing for the right things. So yeah, it would be great to theoretically put a stop to.
Okay, let's theoretically say that they were spreading liberty. Would that make the response from ISIS any different?
Well, here's the thing. How can you say spreading liberty? Because I object to the concept that we can go into another country and spread liberty.
I don't necessarily mean that in the sense of come in with guns and say, here's liberty. I just mean, if you're going to be going places setting up governments, they should be constitutional governments based on protecting human rights, not governments based on what they are based on, which is, whatever you guys want. You want to install certain laws that, abuse women or...
But that's the thing is, how can anyone presume to say, I'm going to come into your country, I'm going to overthrow the government, and I'm going to install this new government, and it's going to be great, and it makes no sense. And the thing is, this is why people don't understand that ISIS has stemmed from, and all these terrorism has stemmed from American action, is that again, people don't seem to be able to put themselves in the shoes of the people there. Even if you have the best of intentions, you're still an occupying force. People are still walking around under constant threat of being shot because there's American soldiers in the streets with guns. And we've been doing this for the past 60 years in that region. So why would you not think that people would be upset by that? Especially when, look, they've done the same shit for thousands of years. Not saying they're warring, because we had an argument about that, but just the way they've done stuff. So we're going there to say, no more of that. You can't do this anymore. You're going to do it this way. You're going to be democracy. You're going to do this and this and this. And all these people, especially when they're religious, we know how crazy religious people are. And fine, if you're religious, that's fine. But especially with these certain religions and the people who take it.
That's a perverted wing of Islam. I mean, that's not. I mean, saying religious. It's okay to be religious. Yeah, it is okay to be religious, but it's not okay to have a religion where your religion is based on just outright saying you want to exterminate certain races.
Right,
really.
But where did that come from? Is what I'm saying. Like, did that always exist? Because it doesn't seem like it necessarily did or not. I had to research it, but. Like going across the globe to attack people, I doubt they would have done that if they did not get introduced to our intervention.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no doubt that hatred for America specifically springs from the actions of the American government in these countries over the last 50 or 60 years. That doesn't mean that some of these people on their own wouldn't be bad characters anyway, doing bad shit in their own country or to other countries. I mean, there are people that have bad motivations already, but when you drop bombs on the place and when you're there committing more human rights abuses and the citizens of those countries see that, well, there's your best recruiting tool for these guys.
It's easy to recruit when that's going on. Exactly. So people say, let's fight against it. Let's go over, let's bomb them. But the more you bomb them, the more you occupy, the more they're going to be able to, good, you know what? Your cousin was killed in a bomb attack and he was an innocent. You should join us to fight back against this regime that's occupying our country. If that was America, people would be up in arms in a second. I would be up in arms in a second.
Yeah, I mean, bombing almost by definition is going to kill innocent people. I mean, it's a fact.
Yeah, there's no way. Even with our advanced technology, people are still dying. Whenever we bomb anywhere, usually it's innocents. They get killed as well.
They bomb weddings in Afghanistan and hospitals in Afghanistan, as we've seen many times in the news lately. So it seems like no matter what the intended purpose of a military action, it's never really based on doing the right thing, at least not presently, but
especially when it's not all out.
We can't
war.
just say screw it. Everybody can do bad things around the world either. I mean, I don't know I don't support our foreign policy at all. I'm kind of trying to merge reality with theory, and in theory, human beings should be able to stop rights abuses wherever and whenever they occur. In reality, in our present system, that's not what the U.S. government goes around doing.
Well, but shouldn't it be on these countries and their own religion to police this? I mean, like, what do you think about that?
They are policing it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're policing it by being that. By Saudi Arabia's laws include, chopping people's heads off. So.
It just seems that they're not because they're like, America's going to do it. America's here. And meanwhile, we're just making it worse. They don't feel like they have to do it because we're there. all the time for years and years, costing American lives and millions of dollars. We're getting off topic here, but
everything's on topic.
Yeah, we're not getting off topic.
We're all the way. We're just deep into topic.
But just to add another level, maybe just another aspect of this complexity to the situation. Something they talked about tonight with refugees, Syrian refugees. I think all three candidates, I might be wrong. I know Hillary Clinton and O'Malley, I'm not sure about Bernie, said that they would want to accept 65,000 Syrian refugees into the United States. I'm pretty sure that none of the Republican candidates would feel the same way. I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it's not about right or wrong. This is just really a fact. I'm pretty sure the American people are going to be on the side of not wanting these 65,000 Syrian refugees coming into the United States, especially after it was found today that one of the terrorists came through Greece and was with a passport, was a Syrian refugee and was a part of that attack in France.
Fairness, I've also seen stories that are contradicting that, so who knows?
Yeah,
okay.
I just saw that the passport might be fake, so the jury's still out on that. So.
I'll say in general, look, I know, like Odie said, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but in general, I would say I would probably be against saying 65,000 people, just put them in and dump them here, and because where are you going to put them? Where are you going to do them? It's just going to be taxpayer money again, and it just seems crazy to me to just dump 65,000 people somewhere in the U.S.
I hate to bring up the P word, but if we just looked at these things in terms of private property, I don't think there should be a limit on how many refugees can come in. If people have property and houses and say, I will take an X amount of refugees, I will take responsibility for them, you can do background checks, comply with who they are, then they can all come in. But if you just pick a random, I mean, that's what all these guys are just doing.
Well,
they're picking a random number.
Point.
They're picking up a random number and saying, we can take this many people. But where are they going? Are they going into some government-run detention center? I mean, are they...
Well, of course.
I mean, where are they going? I mean, if you have people that...
So what would be the libertarian way to deal with it? So maybe you spread out the 65,000 people across the United States, different areas, and each area could decide the level of background check they want to do.
I don't think you just plop people around. I think...
I mean,
there's not an easy answer, obviously, because we don't live in a society based upon entire private property. So there is a role of some kind for the government to see who's coming into the country, I think, at the very least, especially when we know that it's possible some of them could be bad actors. But at the same time, you can't just deny whole swaths of people from entering. If someone here in America wants to take in refugees and help them, I don't think we should put too many barriers other than just making sure they're not known bad guys in place.
Well, I would think in general they probably do, like any immigrant probably gets a background check that's pretty thorough.
I don't know. It didn't look like they were background checking people that were just falling off these boats in some of these countries.
Well, that's
maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know how they can.
But I do like your idea. I think it's an interesting idea, like saying like people can volunteer to say I have space or I have an apartment complex, but like you said, it's not on our government to say, oh, we'll take all these people. Like, it should be voluntary, or decided by cities or communities to say, you know what, we will welcome these people. Like, I'm sure there's certain communities that have a lot more
Los
Syrians
Angeles could say,
number.
hey, we can take 5. We as a city have decided that. That would at least make some level of sense, other than the federal government just deciding, oh yeah, Hillary Clinton calculated we can take 65,000. Like, where do they get this number from?
Yeah, dump them on the freeway. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, put them to work. Maybe they can replace prison labor. No?
Yes!
Is that the libertarian solution? No, probably
Is this
not.
a transition to minimum wage?
I think it might be.
Oh!
Actually, I was kind of going in order, but we don't have to. Because they also spent the next half hour talking about healthcare and all that stuff. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to softball the minimum wage around for a minute?
Let's do that. Let's healthcare it, man.
Okay.
Let's healthcare it up.
Cool. What do these guys? Are there any major differences between any of these guys on healthcare that you guys notice?
Bernie's like that steadfast single payer.
He's not fucking around. At least
he's not like using coded language, beating around the bush. He's like single payer, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear what his plan is. The others pretty much are on board with Obamacare. So I don't really think there's much to say on that issue that's not already been said before. What do you guys think?
I guess. Well, I'll let Odie. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Nothing really. I think I missed the majority of this part of the debate, so I'll just defer to you guys for the most part.
Well, I'll just give my quick take is that, everybody wants a single payer health care, or well, at least Bernie Sanders wants single payer health care. But it's funny, like everybody denounces this, crony capitalism, blah blah blah, and Sanders himself is, like, oh, the insurance companies, but single payer health care, you still would have like all this money going from the government to insurance and to drug companies.
The idea between single payer is that government is the insurance.
Well, government's the insurance, but the thing is, he's like, I remember Bernie Sanders saying
the prices that doctors get, they get to dictate everything.
But
that's how it works in Canada.
I guess here's what I was getting to. So the pharmaceutical companies, they say it's cheaper in Canada, but why? I don't understand why the pharmaceutical companies would be enticed to say, oh, we're going to drastically lower our prices now because the government is paying for it, when the government, by the way, has paid documented
the idea
$500 for a hammer to contractors.
The theory is that the government will put restrictions on how much they can charge for pharmaceuticals, which of course will F that industry up to no end. Why am I censoring myself?
That's a good one. Why are you censoring them? I guess, I mean, why would you ever think the pharmaceutical lobby would allow that, though? I mean, I guess...
Well, that's his whole point. That's why he's saying we got to get the corporations out of politics. That's his entire crux. He's saying we can't do it now because they control it, but they shouldn't control it. What I find funny is that
literally said that.
I guess you know what? I agree with him on that point. Another point for Bernie Sanders from Brian McWilliams.
Brian is slowly morphing into a Bernie Sanders fan right before our very eyes.
That's right.
What I find funny about Bernie is that he harps on the power of the insurance companies and harps on this stuff, but while admitting in the debate that he held right the ACA, and the ACA gives more power to those big insurance companies.
By far.
So it really is either he's ignorant or he's just inconsistent, or he's trying to maybe say he compromised by helping write this law, even though it's imperfect. The conspiracy theory always is that these guys that wrote Obamacare wanted it to be so bad that that the public would demand single payer. And I don't know, maybe there's something to that.
Am I the only one that doesn't understand how single payer would be able to actually exist and have enough funds for more than a couple years?
It definitely exists in places. The problem is the way they have enough funds is they restrict healthcare. They restrict access to healthcare. They restrict when you can get it, and that's how they make up the difference of how the market would sort.
Well, look at the VA. The VA is an example, literally, of how it would work, where people are dying because you can get basic health care under universal health care, like going to a doctor. Okay, you can get a doctor, but if you need to go to a second-level specialist or a psychologist or anything like that, you're screwed. I'm
gonna toss out a high-level teaser real quick because I recently spoke with Tim Moen, the leader of the Libertarian Party in Canada, and we talked about this issue for a bit. And he was saying, healthcare in Canada is great if you don't actually need it, because you can go and get basic stuff with a doctor pretty easily. That's no problem. But if you actually want to get something done on your own, it's almost impossible. Like he had some issue where he wanted to get some blood tests done for his own reasons, and they wouldn't let him. The doctor said, no, you can't. We're only allowed to give you these certain blood tests every X amount of months. And he wanted to do a weekly blood test because there's something he wanted to monitor in his blood. And they told him no. And he said, well, I'll pay for it. I mean, I just want to do it. And he's not even allowed to pay for it on his own. And they said sometimes you can't get it. And it's different in different parts of Canada, he made clear. But sometimes you can't get an MRI, even if you want one. Some people wait weeks and weeks to get an MRI to even diagnose a problem. So the laws of economics are always going to catch up. And in the case of single payer, the way they make up for it is by restricting access to healthcare. That's the only way they really can do it from a command economy.
It would be a good statistic to look at, the percentage of Canadians that left the amount of healthcare dollars that went outside of the country before they went to a single payer system compared till now. And I'm sure it's
Canadians actually have medical tourism too here. They come to the Oklahoma Surgery Center and they get cheaper. I mean, it's not necessarily cheaper, is that they can get it. If they can have the money and then pay for it. And thanks to the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, I'm plugging my man, Dr. Keith Smith, but they actually charge prices and they list their prices, and they're way more affordable than if you were just to go to a hospital here in the U.S. So a lot of those Canadians are coming over, spending the money to get the healthcare they need now, not waiting until see if their problem gets worse or to get it diagnosed or whatever.
Well, people always point to, I think it's Sweden or Switzerland, I can't remember which one, but one of the two, I wrote an article about it and I can't remember which one, because I'm drunk. But people always point to these, this is the epitome of healthcare. Everything's taken care of. I think it's Sweden. But now in Sweden, because of the exact issues we're talking about, they have people just say, okay, I'm going to buy extra healthcare. So they're paying basically for the same healthcare like we do here, because they want to be able to actually get access to specialists when they need it. So people are paying on top of all this crazy taxation in addition, because the system does not work.
It's the market providing an alternative to single-payer healthcare.
And it's funny. I was telling Tim about like Dr. Josh Umber, and he was basically saying if Dr. Josh, runs his concierge practice. I interviewed him a few weeks ago. I will link to it in the show notes at lionsofliberty.com/158. I finally nailed the show notes over a half hour into the show. But yeah, he said, I mean, if Dr. Josh Umber was in Canada and tried to do that, he would get arrested. I mean, that would not be allowed. You know, you're not even allowed to provide an alternative outside of the government system, which is just, tyrannical.
So is there a difference between single payer and universal healthcare, or is that the same thing?
I believe they're the same thing.
I think they're the same.
It's the same thing.
Because Donald Trump is in favor of universal healthcare, right?
Well, then he's in favor of single payer healthcare. There you go.
He is. So, he said it. Yeah, he is.
So we might actually end up with Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump.
Universal healthcare versus universal healthcare.
And they will be universally united.
He doesn't run away from that position?
He said that like not too long ago, and no one's questioned him on it. So I'm pretty sure he still says that.
How do they not ask him about that in a Republican debate?
I don't understand that either. Because he's a wizard.
He's a wizard.
Even if they did, he would just somehow say something else.
He would just say, check your facts, and then move on.
Check your facts. I never said that. I did say that, but I didn't say that. I only said it one time. I didn't mean it. I do mean it.
I say a lot of things in the media. You're the media. Check your facts.
Expect us, healthcare us. And then everybody forgets.
Is that a Harry Potter
We don't even remember it. That was a Harry Potter reference.
All right.
We don't remember it because he's a wizard.
Exactly.
He blanked our brains.
All right. I guess we'll move on to the next thing that they talked about, which was, unless I missed a topic, feel free to let me know, but I believe minimum wage was the next little discussion. I only have one note.
I have no notes, so whatever you say, I believe.
My note says...
Like Democrats and Hillary Clinton.
Since it's an explicit show, my note says, the fuck are these guys talking about? So anybody care to shed some light on that?
I have one note also. It's got Hillary Clinton calls for $12 federal minimum wage.
Cheapskate.
Cheapskate. That's what I said.
Just like Bernie. Bernie's a cheapskate too. $15. Come on.
Yeah.
Give him
if you really want to help the middle class,
give him 25. I mean, hey, let people make a career out of being a McDonald's cashier. Am I right?
Seriously, I mean, flipping burgers, that is worth way more than $20 an hour. I mean, I would pay someone $30 an hour to flip burgers at a barbecue at my house. Hell no.
Hey, maybe that's it. Maybe this is going to break up. Bernie Sanders wants to break up the big corporations. We'll break up McDonald's because of the minimum wage. We'll have only backyard barbecue burgers from now on.
I was having this conversation the other day. Here's what I don't get. So you have a minimum wage, a federal minimum wage. It's like, I think, 9 something an hour now. I could be wrong. Maybe it's less. And every state has one, and you're not allowed to pay anybody less than that. But if you want to hire an intern, you can pay them $0, and that's fine. But anywhere between 1 cent and the minimum wage, you can't do.
In California, you can't pay an intern $0. You have to pay them.
Really?
I mean, you can get.
There goes my Lions of Liberty expansion.
You can get. You can get around it if you're giving them college credit.
Yeah, and that's a joke too, because it's not like the employer.
That's that Hollywood bullcrap, I think.
Yeah.
No. That's a whole different issue. The actors thing, which the actors union opposes the minimum wage because it would mandate that all these theaters pay people $15 an hour.
Yeah, all these extras start off at like $6 an hour or whatever minimum wage is.
It would destroy theater in Los Angeles. Literally, it would destroy it. No one could afford anything.
Well, it's happening. So.
And it would just like in every other
it's
industry.
It's already passed, so they would get ready.
You'd go up. You'd have a McDonald's ordering machine reading Shakespeare. Is what would happen.
Oh my God, they're gonna have robot extras now too.
I love it. Calculon like Futurama.
But
thank you, JB. I'm glad somebody watches that amazing show.
Well, yes, I caught that reference.
I'll tell you the one thing. Go ahead, JB.
But it's pretty interesting that Bernie pretty much did brush off the idea that there would be considerable job loss from the $15. He pretty much acknowledged it and said it's not that big of a deal. Am I the only one who noticed?
No, yeah,
he
said
that?
He basically said, look, every public policy is going to have some negative consequences, which is another way of saying every public policy has negative consequences.
He basically said every rose has its thorn.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much did. That's exactly he did it in a kind of a subtle way, JB, but he did do that. I mean, he just basically said, yeah, there's some negative consequences. Anyway, here's why we got to do it. Whereas it really doesn't address the problem at all, which is that we're saying there's
exactly.
negative consequences.
People are going to be pretty screwed. But you know what? If you get a job under this new, if you can push a robot out of the way, you'll get a job. But then nobody addresses the fact that also, does nobody understand the fact that if you raise the bottom, like you raise the floor, everybody that charges everything else for the floor of general products, because the market dictates how much people can charge for products. They're going to say, okay, well, now the market floor is raised. Now we can raise rents. Now we can raise prices for food. Now we can raise everything else. You understand? Like, even though he has this socialist idea and all these Democrats have a socialist idea of what we're going to pay people, the free market does still exist in this country, and it's going to react accordingly.
Exactly.
You're not feeling the burn anymore. It's already dying down, I guess.
When you raise minimum wage, you might create by doing that, create some innovation. At McDonald's, instead of talking to a cashier, you're gonna have a touch screen, which is gonna raise your level of productivity. It's not gonna change your actual production levels, but you're gonna alter productivity. You're going to get more product for less money, for less labor. So the net output of that is you're going to have less people actually getting paid and making money, and you're going to drive down your quality of life.
Exactly right. And there's going to be no more jobs. I guess there have to be jobs people can just get that's like their intro job, but it's like, I've said this before, like apprenticeship, the concept of apprenticeship is like out the window nowadays. I remember,
people used to pay people to learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, you were like an indentured servant almost. Like, I remember when I first moved to LA, I was making $28,000 a year, which in LA is like pauper wages. It was like barely above minimum wage. But in the industry, it's Los Angeles. The industry is like, I'm in PR, it's entertainment, kind of. And people wanted to be in it, so you work your way up, and then you say, like, okay, later in life, I will make more money. But you got to work your way up. And now it's like, nobody has to work their way up. Now you come out, you get paid this amount. And it's like, people are talking about millennials coming out entitled. Everybody's coming out entitled now, no matter if they went to college or not, because you get paid this wage, which, holy crap, I had to work 10 years to get that wage, Maybe not that much, but still.
Brian just got his 15-hour bump last week, guys.
I'm at 16:45.
Yeah.
Going to the strip club, throwing quarters.
No, man, you're putting that money back into podcasts. If I got anything to say about it. Does anybody have a point on the minimum wage, though? Because, look, I don't agree with the policy, but it is a response to...
I made my point, you son of a bitch.
Does anyone have a point? You guys. You make it sound like we're not even...
I'm talking about... Yeah, I guess that did come across bad.
Mark forgot that anybody else is on this podcast.
I'm talking about any of the candidates. Like, is there anything worthy in the conversation about minimum wage? Because it's true that people are struggling. It's true that people can't get jobs. And I think the minimum wage is the wrong response to that. But the symptoms that they're pointing out are somewhat accurate, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's kind of like we talked about a couple weeks ago. Well, it was the last Democratic debate reaction show. I forget what the heck we were talking about. They were
probably Democrats.
For paternity leave or maternity leave, and Bernie Sanders was saying that everyone should have it, the government should provide it. And yeah, I think like the minimum wage, like suppressed wages, wages not going as far as they used to go 10, 20, 30 years ago. I think that people have a point. That's a fact. I mean, the quality of life in this country is going down. And, I said a couple times during the live blog tonight, are we going to talk about the Federal Reserve? Are we going to mention it? I mean, if anyone was going to talk about it, you would think it would be Bernie Sanders, bringing it up. But from his past history, sabotaging Ron Paul's audit the Fed bill, obviously there's something there with him and the Federal Reserve. I don't know what it is. If he,
do you think that Bernie sneaks off to Jekyll Island on the weekends?
He might. I don't know. Hold on.
I have some here's. Let me ask you guys a question. How about this? So we're all against the making the minimum wage so much higher, but here's a trade-off, because we all know corporate tax in America is ridiculous. It's like the third highest or the fourth highest in the world. It's like 35-36%. So as a trade-off, and no Democrat is talking about this, as a trade-off, you could raise the minimum wage, but in exchange, you need to lower the corporate tax to like 5%. So that way small businesses can actually afford to pay people a minimum wage, because now they're not getting taxed by the government out the ass. What do you think of that?
What?
I don't think...
Did I just blow everyone's mind?
I think that's way... that did blow my mind, because that's different types of dollars. You're talking about... taxing on revenue compared to taxing on inputs to creating revenue. And those are very different things. So yeah, that did blow my mind. I don't think it's something that
Mind also blown.
I'm just saying, I was providing a devil's advocate kind of counterpoint there, and that, look, I would like it if the corporate tax was lowered to 5% and we didn't have a minimum wage mandated. But just saying, it would be an interesting thing to say, like, you could save money in one way, even though we're forcing you coercively to spend it another way.
All right, we've heard Brian's plan. I can't wait till you run for president and try to.
Oh, it's going to be amazing until all the
debates.
pictures and stories come out.
And I have to do McWillie ups or downs. I'm gonna have to do a podcast about you every week.
that's the best you can do is McWillie's
On the fly. Yes.
Really
What do you got? What do you got? Give me one.
McWups and downs?
If you're gonna call me out, you got to provide an alternative. Oh, you got nothing. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Moving along.
Idiots.
Everybody's a critic until they're on the spot. All right. There's one other thing.
I call upon our listeners to find a better. Number one, I want them to come up with a hashtag for my presidential campaign.
McWallips and McWallips.
Oh, that took you like 40 seconds.
That is terrible.
That's terrible too.
That's
Yeah,
awful.
I don't even know what
I
that
call
means.
upon listeners of this podcast to come up with a better
whatever you want.
hashtag for our ups and downs, our
Donald
ran,
Trump
our,
over here.
our Rand pluses and minuses version, which you can find at lionsofliberty.com/Rand.
Oh, a plug. Hey, are we going to do one next week?
Yeah, we are going to do one.
Okay, because I need to know so I can promote it right now. All right, this Thursday, a new edition of Ram Pluses and Minuses, the podcast, because, we'll talk about
Why
it
not?
then.
Slightly more sober than
Tune
tonight,
in.
I say.
Only slightly.
Are we doing another felony report too after this?
What are we talking business here?
Are we planning Are we scheduling everything out on the air now? Is that what we're doing?
That's coming. That's coming.
We're only
talk
doing
about it
new
offline.
business here, Odie, not old business. Old business is on Tuesdays.
One thing I want to make sure we mention is that Hillary somehow turned a question about her Wall Street donations, which Bernie was the only time he got really on her at all, which it's really funny, the contrast. I mean, I guess you can say it's nice the Democrats are civil, but boy, is it boring that they don't go
really
after each other
fucking
at
annoying.
all. But Bernie was, I guess, going after her about her Wall Street donations, and she somehow spun it into something about 9/11, and I really don't know how she did it, but she got applause.
Yeah,
so
I'm really glad you brought that up. There was even that tweet that they brought up about how
I
she
love that they
completely
did that tweet.
disregarded the question. It started talking about 9/11.
I could not believe
randomly.
that they showed that tweet. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm actually impressed that
She's
they're
like
putting
Chris
this tweet on
Christie.
the air.
So wait, what was it?
Exactly.
I missed this. What was the tweet?
You missed this. This is like the best moment of the debate. They showed a tweet from a listener that was like, I don't know exactly what it said, but it was like, what's up with Hillary not answering the question about Wall Street donations and instead diverting to 9/11 or something, which is exactly what she did. And she's like, well, I hope it didn't come across that way. I'm like, no, that's what she did, and that's how it came across.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I thought JB would start talking there, but instead it's an awkward silence.
No,
And
no,
again,
that
nice
was an
work,
awkward
JB.
silence.
Welcome to the podcast anytime.
All right. Any other thoughts on
Hold on,
that?
I haven't thought on that. Here's what drove me nuts. I think it might have been the same line of thinking, like they question about Wall Street. And Hillary Clinton loves to go, you know what? We need to take this country. I don't know why I'm doing like a low guttural voice, like Nixon. You know what? She's like, you know what? We need to take back this country from the billionaires. And it's like, Hillary, do you not understand the irony? You are a multi-millionaire.
But not a billionaire.
Like, yeah, it's like, this is like the 99.9% taking on the 99.999%. Like, what kind of cage match is this?
She's a part of the 1%. She's the 1%.
They're jousting with
Taking it back
oyster
from
forks.
her. What?
Yeah,
Why would anyone want her to lead?
Why
to
wouldn't
take
she just give it
country
back
from
if she thinks it should be taken back?
Right.
You already have it. Give it back. All right, and they did one more topic that I can think of anyway, and that's did a little bit of gun talk, and the only thing I took away from this is that Bernie seems to be rapidly running away from even the vaguely pro-gun positions he's taken in the past. Any thoughts? JB, you're our resident guy I want to talk to when it comes to gun stuff. So what do you think about all this? Yeah, why not?
It did kind of seem that way. He tried to distance himself a bit, but he did mention that he comes from a pro-gun state where
He does like to say that.
What's that?
He does like to say that a lot.
Yeah, I guess that's his way of saying that he's okay with people owning firearms, and he comes from a state where people own a lot of firearms, and that's okay with him, and he's never really pushed to, eliminate them or anything like that, but I feel like he more or less kept silent on the issue. I think he just wants to stay on the fence with guns and doesn't really want to focus on it so much. At least that's what I got.
It's the Hillary Clinton style of debate where you just avoid talking about any issues that might shine badly on you. Meanwhile, I want Bernie Sanders to be like, hey, Vermont is Vermount, a home intruder on the wall.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Can I just say that, every Democratic debate, they talk about gun show loopholes, online loopholes. It's not real. There is no
I've never been able to
loophole.
figure out what this is until I finally figured out that it's nothing. It's not.
It's the least important thing ever.
There's background checks for all of it. It already exists.
You cannot get a gun without a background check.
You can't just say, I want to buy a handgun online and click on it and it comes to your house. No, you got to go pick it up and you go through a background check.
Right. And even if you could, what's the percentage of people that would be going to gun shows and doing that? 0.0001%? Like, what the hell are you even talking about?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous talking point, and they cling to it. It's like their lead talking point. It's ridiculous.
I love when people bring the gun show loophole up to me, and I'm like, oh, so what is that? They're like, oh, that's where they just walk in and get guns. They don't, or they say that, which isn't true, or they say like they don't know, and I'm like, yeah, you don't know because it's not real. It's amazing how they've gotten away with this talking point for so long because it literally does not exist.
Oh wait, what was the other? Hold on, this is a totally different.
JB, while you think, JB can say what he wants to say.
What I find even more amazing than that is Hillary talking about holding gun manufacturers responsible for gun deaths in the country, which I find to be even more ridiculous than the gun loophole talk. And she was like banging on how she wanted to do this and couldn't get it passed through because it's frankly ridiculous.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous to hold manufacturers responsible for what people do with the firearms they may or may not have legally purchased.
Yeah, if you're going to say it's legal to make guns, then you can't also say, but you should be held responsible for what people do with them. I mean,
exactly.
Either ban guns and say you can't make them. I obviously don't support that, but that would at least be consistent. Or don't and don't.
Well, it's like anything. Like you kill anybody with anything, you can say yourself. Like in Fargo, the movie Fargo, they killed somebody with a wood chipper. You're like, I'm suing the wood chipper. Ridiculous.
Unless the gun were to malfunction.
Sure, there's
then of course, yeah, because then it's the manufacturer's
like with
fault.
cars, yeah. If you have a problem with the car, something happens, the brakes don't work, yeah, obviously you're going to sue the manufacturer. Same thing with a gun, but yeah, it's insane that you just because someone used a gun to kill people, you're going to sue the people that made it. That's an argument for any rational person. It blows my mind.
Well, it'd be like if somebody runs somebody over with a car, use it for manslaughter, you're like, okay, now you sue the car manufacturer. Because a car can be a weapon too.
Same thing.
That's the argument when people were drunk. Anyway, here's another stat, by the way. I would have thought this drove me nuts when Hillary Clinton said this. Did you guys remember she's like, hey, in Las Vegas, 3,000 people were killed by gun violence since our last debate. Did you hear that?
What?
Yeah, I'm going to be checking fact check.
About just Las
Was
Vegas.
that like was that the drone attacks that they're flying outside Las Vegas in the Middle East?
I'm telling you, that quote is exact. Google it tomorrow. You'll find the transcript. Maybe it's already up. Mark, transcript us. But no, she's like, since our last debate, 3,000 people have been killed by guns in Las Vegas. I'm like, what is going on in Las Vegas? Are the casinos having all-out fucking war? Like, is this like The Godfather where Mo Green's getting shot in the eye during his massage? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think she meant the country.
She must have meant the country, but it's still
maybe
like
I think she was saying the last debate, which took place in Las Vegas.
Maybe, but she said it's in Las Vegas, 3,000 deaths. But even that, like, in the country since like the whole year, I looked up the stat while we were watching the debate.
If a bunch of gangs shoot each other, you can't include that as like in the same category as like a kid.
Well, she's including everything. She's including cops shooting people. She's including people that like everything and anything. But it's like 11.5 thousand people have been killed in 2015. So it's overall, like, let's be honest. Hey, it sounds like a lot. But compared to the overall everything that's going on, it's like nothing.
All right. Well, it is after midnight actually for you guys on the East Coast. So I think we're gonna wrap things up here. But before we do it, we're gonna do a little thought exercise. All right. And
you're a damn podcast Nazi tonight, Mark. Running this debate.
Let's all in because I want to do a thought exercise.
Not this debate, this podcast.
Let's all just imagine that we are registered Democrats, and for whatever reason, maybe we forgot to change our registration or at some point in our lives, and we just decide, screw it, like we're registered, we may as well go vote in a Democratic primary. So here's your three guys. You got Bernie, you got Hillary, you got Martin O'Malley. You got to vote for one of them just so you vote. Who are you going to vote for? Odie. I know who Brian's voting for, Mr. Robot.
Let me first say, before I say who I would vote for, gun to my head, had to vote. Google Martin O'Malley, Dalai Lama, and you're going to find a picture of them rubbing their noses together. It's a very cute picture.
Okay.
Don't get me on a tangent, by the way. I hate the Dalai Lama, and not to be super pro China, but the whole Dalai Lama thing is effing bullshit.
Oh yeah, I see this picture. All right, let's not do that right now.
It is BS.
You can find me a guest to talk
He
about
ran
it.
a case society. He was like the biggest abuser of human rights ever, and now people think he's like a god. It's crazy.
Okay.
And our country propped him up against China because we hate it. Anyway.
Maybe we can have a special podcast just on that later. But anyway.
People should look into it because it's ridiculous. Everybody's been like, it's so...
Brian's infatuated with China. Moving on. All right, Odie, who are you voting for?
It's a tough call. Obviously, right off the bat, Hillary Clinton is not an option because she is basically a neoconservative war hawk, and she's a lunatic, and I don't want another Clinton in the White House, so I'm down to Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders. Martin O'Malley, governor of Maryland, what did he do for Maryland? Look at Baltimore recently. It's in shambles. I don't know a lot about his background. He doesn't have much background as an executive. Bernie Sanders has never held a job in his life. He's been, a senator for many years. I'm not sure, what's it been like 10, 12, 15, 20 years of the past, whatever.
I think it's more like 30, but yeah.
30 years.
We got the idea.
Good for you, Bernie. He's never had a job in his life. Never created any value. Martin O'Malley, I don't think he's ever created any value either. So they're both terrible options. So which one is more likely to harm the United States, to harm me? I look at a couple things.
I can't wait for you to tell this to somebody in a voting booth. This is the longest speech ever.
Hey, who did you vote for? You're like, all right, let me break this down for you. How much time you got? No,
so basically, Second Amendment, they're both terrible. Bernie used to be better. I'll go with Bernie. We go in foreign policy. They're both better than the Republicans. I'll still go with Bernie because Bernie at least describes something that, at least having the Middle East take care of Islamic terrorism. Bernie's economic plans are terrible, but the Senate and Congress, no way in hell any of that ever gets through. So, and Martin O'Malley is probably a robot, so I don't want the country being overtaken by robots, and that's just bad for everybody. So I got to go with Bernie Sanders.
All right, it's one for Bernie. JB, you can give a shorter.
I'll give much shorter, and I'll just say Bernie as well for all the reasons that John mentioned.
All right, and let's see. Are we going to get is someone going to break away here?
Let's go. Oh, no. You know what? Like Odie laid out, the biggest point Odie made, 2 points. Number one, Bernie Sanders admitted the fact that the blowback is existing and that our foreign policy is coming back to haunt us. So points on that for Bernie. And also, and as you know, I've made any points for Bernie tonight, but also, like Odie said, all of his biggest negative aspects about socialism and the economic climate, it's just like Ron Paul, where the biggest complaints with Ron Paul were about his, wanting to kill this and that program, which would never happen. Bernie's the same way. It's never going to happen in a million years. So I think the things that he can control are probably better than the things that he proposes that will never happen. So I got to go with Bernie over my robotic love.
See, Brian talked longer than me, but you don't give him a hard time.
There's no way I talk longer than you.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm not going to dissent from the group at all. I will obviously, Hillary's out of the question, and Bernie, for all of his faults, which are many, 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 at least. I actually respect the fact that he says, no, I want single payer. No, I want this. Like, he doesn't futz around, and I don't get the feeling that he's a corporate sellout, at least. And I can't really say that about the other two. So, as much as I disagree with him, if I had to vote for one, it's Bernie.
That's a good word for Bernie. He doesn't futz around.
Did you? Yeah, you said futz around. Is that a term? Futz around?
Bernie's no butts. He doesn't futz around. He's not a mashugana.
All right. Plus, Bernie reminds me of all my Jewish uncles.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, real quick, I'm sorry.
Another story?
I forgot this. No, not a story, but I forgot to mention this for Hillary Clinton. We didn't come up. But when Hillary Clinton was questioned about Iraq and what's going on, she danced around the topic so much. And I remember she goes, hey, you know what? We were attacked in Kenya. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about, Hillary? How does that have to do with anything? That's it. That's all I want to say.
All right.
It pissed me off.
That's why Brian won vote for Hillary. That's the deal breaker.
That's why Brian's drinking more right now.
All right, guys, it's been fun. JB, welcome back into the fold. It's been a while. I thank all of you for taking your Saturdays out. And I hope these acts that we're taking, live blogging, our podcasting, well, we know we have the listeners out there, but we hope it's appreciated because these are kind of tough to sit through. But hey, that's why we have a few adult beverages.
We put in a good 8
chat with
hours.
Friends.
Not 8 hours.
How
many hours?
Not quite 8. I don't know. More like 4.
4.
Anyway. Folks, you want to join me for a usual sign-off until this Thursday when we return with Mr. McWilliams once again, hopefully a little more sober, with another edition of Ram Pluses and Minuses. Until then, folks, why don't we all just live long
and live free. You know, I actually only drank 1 alcoholic beverage during that podcast because I was so drunk going into it.
Thank God. Good night.
Actually, I could hear you getting more sober every word you said.
Right? I know.
All right, gang. I got to go.
It's scary.
It's been real. Peace.
All right. See you later.
Yeah.
Head of editing and mastering is John Dauber.
Contact Johnny53.